G'day ladies and gentlemen, ScottyD here from the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network, and welcome back for another installment in our From Sprue to Tabletop series. Welcome back once again to the ATWN, ladies and gentlemen, with myself, ScottyD, for another installment in our From Sprue to Tabletop series where we look at the hobbying side of miniature wargaming and discussing various techniques to help get you started to getting armies fully painted and based and all ready to go for your tabletop wargaming experiences. And for this next installment in the series, we're going to look at how I'm going with painting my orcs and where I'm up to in that process. Before we jump into today's video, I want to thank everyone who has been supporting us over here on YouTube, where you've been subscribing, liking, or commenting on all of our videos, or joining us for live tournament coverage, or jumping on as a member as well. It is greatly appreciated to have you guys joining us, and I hope that with the future tournament coverage we've got and all the other content we've got planned, that you continue to do so. So let's jump into today's video, because once again, it has been a little bit of a hot minute since I've done another installment in this series, but it doesn't mean that I haven't forgotten about it at all. Now, as I was reviewing my orcs recently, I realized something. A unit of orc boys, a regular unit of orc boys, are now in 10th edition. They come with 19 boys and a single knob. However, what I actually own is I own 2 units of 20 orc boys with a knob for each unit, meaning I've got 21 models for each unit, resulting in 2 spare orc boys. Now, I figured, hey, why don't I actually use these 2 spare orc boys to actually test out the color scheme for my orcs before I actually do the entire force in it? And so that is what today's video is going to be about, ladies and gentlemen. We are looking at what to do when you are testing a color scheme, what to reflect upon after doing so, and things like that, as well as showing you how I'm going to be hopefully painting up my orcs for my small orc force as well. Now, when it comes to testing out a color scheme, it's something that you might not always have miniatures spare to be able to do so, but in the event that you do, or maybe you pick up some cheaper ones off the secondhand market, say on Facebook or on eBay, or pick some up off a friend, by doing so, what it actually allows you to do is to see the overall painting process that you're wanting to undertake and how it'll actually look on the miniature. So I'll be testing the color scheme for my orcs on these 2 regular orc boys. One is just a standard orc boy from Assault on Black Reach back in 5th edition that has just got a chopper and a slugger. The other one is a shooter boy from a traditional orc boy kit that was a solo kit. Of course, the Assault on Black Reach orcs with the chopper and slugger are very open pose, whereas the shooter boys are very closed pose. Now, what this would mean for me is that not only am I able to test the color scheme, I'm also able to test my own brush control, as well as the contrast paints that I'm wanting to use, and making sure I use the right brush in the right area when doing so as well. But before we actually get into painting these miniatures, I've got to share with you guys the process that I've landed upon for priming them. Since our previous video, I did kind of tease that for you guys, and so I've actually landed on a priming method that kind of combines Zenithal priming and slap chop priming into the one method to be able to have a really nice look of a prime. So how I achieve this is, for the initial prime color, the base coat, what you might do for black, or if you do a color primer. For this one, I'm actually doing Army Painter's Uniform Gray color primer. Now, I found that this color is a nice mid-tone gray. It's not too dark, it's not too light. It actually allows the contrast colors to show up in the shadows, but not like super strong, but they still show up, so you can still see the color without them being like overly bright if you were to do a white or gray sear, for example, or if you were to do the traditional slap chop, where if you don't do the dry brushing too well, they could actually be quite dark and you can hardly see the color. Now, the next step in my priming process is that I actually hit them with a Zenithal spray, prime from 45-degree angles across the entire miniature, so the sun's basically coming down from on top of them, using Games Workshop's Grey Sear primer. Now, the reason why I'm using Grey Sear here is that I found it's a really light grey, that it can be read as white when you do a traditional Zenithal prime over black. However, when you do it over a grey, it actually reads as a really light grey tone, which is really nice, and the look that we're wanting to achieve here. And the final stage of the priming process is that before I begin even applying contrast paint here, I actually use Pro Acryl Bold Titanium White, and I do the slap chop dry brush with it, picking up my Army Painter Masterclass large dry brush, the largest one in the 3 brush set, to actually pick out those highest parts of the orcs, so they've got some nice crisp edges. The faces are going to be really well colored by the contrast paints and such as well. Now, as I'm doing all of these processes, I'm also priming the bases because I've got resin bases on these guys, and we will be looking at how I'm going to paint the resin bases in a future video, but I can't talk about the resin bases without speaking about today's sponsor, which is Miniature Horde. Now, Miniature Horde are a non-for-profit cooperative gaming store based in Melbourne who stock a wide range of both resin and filament printed products, magnets, magnetized cases, a custom printing service alongside selling Games Workshop product for the various games that they produce. They have a large selection of resin basing elements, from building debris to animals and vegetation to decorate your bases with, to fit the theme that you're wanting to go for any given army. Or if you want to take the hassle out of it, they've got a large range of themed resin bases that are correctly sized, whether you're playing Warhammer 40k or Age of Sigmar, that you can pick up, which are pre-designed and have a pre-designed structure underneath the base, so you can magnetize them if you use magnetic miniature case or miniature storage solutions. Now, the basing theme they provided for my orcs was the ruined factory bases, and between their unprimed and primed versions, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they look like when I've actually finished painting them up, and you'll be able to see that in this process as we do some more work on the orcs going forward. So if you're in the hunt for an Australian-based gaming store that actively supports the wider community in Victoria, that you can purchase your basing, your magnets and miniatures and storage solutions from all in the one spot, then make sure to check out Miniature Horde's website or find their physical store down in Melbourne as well. We've got the link for them down in the description below, and make sure to check them out, and a massive thank you to them for sponsoring today's video. So now that we've primed up these 2 orc boys, it's time to grab those contrast paints and start applying them on to the miniatures. Now, the way that I choose these colors is going to be the order that I actually want to paint on the orcs when I do the entire army. So I'm going to walk through that process. And the first color that I choose to do is the one with the largest surface area of each of them, which is their skin, and I'll be using the orc flesh contrast for this step. Now, whilst I do my best to ensure that I don't get any of the contrast paint on areas where I don't want it to be, unfortunately it does happen a few times. However, I quickly clean off my brush, and then I actually soak up any of the excess contrast off that area, and then I get my brush damp after cleaning out that excess contrast paint, damp it with a little bit of water, and I just wick off whatever's left to get as much of that contrast paint off that area. It's not going to be successful in getting all of it off. However, what it does is it desaturates the color, which means when I apply the actual contrast paint I want over it, it's more than likely going to overpower that color and actually hide it for the most part, where we're not going to be able to see that through the actual color that's meant to be on that area. Now, after doing the flesh, the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing their ragged shirts, which is going to be done in snake bite leather. And this is really a nice kind of yellowy brown tone, which I really like the look of how it actually comes up on the orc boys. Now, with the Slugger and the Chopper Orc Boy, it was very easy to do this color, but this was the first color on the Shooter Boy that was hidden by his weapon, the shooter, quite a fair bit. So I was particularly careful when applying the paint on the shirt at the front, which was hidden behind his shooter, so I didn't get any paint on it where it shouldn't have. Very similar, if I did the same process that I did when cleaning up any mistakes with the orc flesh. Now, the third color that I've chosen to go with is Cygor Brown, which I'm going to be using for their pants and larger leather straps that are across their shirt, or maybe they've got a couple of belts. There's a few different areas that I choose to use this color on them with. Now, these are the first three colors that have the largest surface area on each of the orcs that I'm wanting to paint up first and foremost across my entire force. And so they're going to be the first three colors that I actually will do on every orc when I get to painting the large batch of 50, 60 orcs in the one hit. Now, for the next couple of areas, such as their shoes, their belt, the armbands, pouches, gloves, gun casings as well, I grab Black Templar and I start applying that all over. Those various areas are a lot smaller, so I grab a different size brush so I've got a bit more control. Now, after I complete those, I grab Nazdrag Yellow for any horns or earrings or ammo and any other areas that I might want to have a bit of a gold look. And so that way it's able to look quite nice and yellow in that sense that you want the gold to be. For any wrist wrappings or teeth and fingernails, I'm going to be using Skeleton Horde, and I grab that and I apply that very carefully, different size brush again for the different areas so that I'm able to achieve nice, clean paint jobs over the orc flesh where it's been in certain spots, but also so it doesn't color over areas that have already been done. Then for the orc's eyes, the lips, any exposed skin or scars that they have, and some small orc symbols on the miniatures, I grab Flesh Terror's red and I apply that with a smaller paintbrush and just get that all in some spots as well. Some of it's going to be really noticeable, like their lips and their eyes. Other areas not so much, like the markings for like some of the orc iconography and stuff as well. Then I grab Rattling Grime to paint any of the metal parts across the boys, from weapons to clasps on their belts to helmets and everything in between that I have to do. And after I finish with Rattling Grime, I have now finished painting up both orc boys to the test color scheme for my small orc force, which means that I'm able to actually see how they look. So now that I've completed both of these test models, from these tests, you'll be able to see what the color scheme kind of to a battle ready standard is going to look like in practice, and you can actually tweak it. You can see what you mightn't like, you can see what you do like, and so you can really have a chance to reflect on that before you go, okay, cool, I'm going to go through this process of across an entire army. You also get an idea of how long each model is going to take through that process. So for these two orc boys, they actually took me a total of 1 hour and 45 minutes to just apply the contrast paints. It's probably about 15 minutes worth of priming to dry brush. So it means they're about an hour or so to actually do the full paint job on. But you know, if I'm just doing the contrast paints, less than an hour a model to get to a battle ready standard from their primed state is really solid. I'm really happy with that. However, I do have some reflections on this entire process and some changes that I want to make before I actually hit the main force. The first thing is Skeleton Horde. It's a relatively desaturated contrast paint, and so I think it's likely going to result in me needing to do 2 coats of it to get a really solid bone color over the areas that I want this color, rather than just hitting it once and leaving it, so that then, you know, some of the gray and the white show through. I want that bone color to really show through a bit more, so maybe doing 2 coats is going to be the better bet there. The second is that I tried to use various contrast paints like Nazdrag Yellow and Rattling Grime in place of traditional metallics, and I don't like the final look. Initially, when I did this about a month and a half ago when I had some time, I liked the look, and now upon reflection, I really like how traditional metallics look, and so I'm probably going to pivot back to using metallic acrylics and then use the contrast paint to actually tint them instead. So I still get a similar look, but it's actually gonna have some metallic looks to it and metallic properties. So I've just got to determine what color metallic that I'm gonna go with for my metal and my gold. And those are 2 colors that I'll figure out before I actually get into painting the entire force. Now the third is, the overall color scheme is definitely retro orcs. However, I actually really like how that comes up over the top of the contrast priming method that I've landed upon. You know, you can see the color in some areas where the shadow is going to be, but it's not like super bright, but it's also not like desaturated and you just can't see it at all because you've done a black primer. So I really like how that has actually worked out for this force. And the fourth and final reflection is that whilst it wasn't particularly tricky to get behind the shooter of the shooter boy to paint the back of the weapon and the orc's you know, and the guy's chest, I need to ensure that I paint everything up that's visible, because even though that I got it mostly covered, there's still some spots where I didn't. And because I'm using a lighter primer and a lighter priming method, it means they're going to be a lot more visible when I don't cover them. So it's going to be important that when I am looking to cover them, even if I go back at the end of the process and hit those areas that you can still see the gray or the white through, that I still hit them with something like Black Templar, or I go back in with the color contrast that's meant to be that area and make sure it's fully covered. However, overall, testing the color scheme for the orcs was really beneficial, and I really like the look of them overall. It's a really cool orc scheme. I'm quite happy with it. And, you know, it reminds me of the scheme that I really wanted to achieve with my orcs way back in 5th edition when I first got them. And now being able to do so with contrast paints, giving me that speed and efficiency to be able to get through models a fair amount quicker. I'm really happy with it. Of course, I'm going to build upon that. I'm going to get them to parade ready with some highlights and stuff over the top of the contrast in a few different areas, which we'll show in a later video on these exact models as well, when I figure out that side of the process too. But when you come to testing color schemes, getting it to the battle ready point first is really important, because then you can actually see the entire process, and, you know, you can see how it looks before you commit to painting an entire army in that color scheme and using all your time to do it, to then just turn around and go, actually, I don't like how it looks as a cohesive force. Whereas when you do a test color scheme, you can see how the model's going to look before you even embark on that. You go, actually, I really like how that looks. Actually, I don't. What can I change? And you can reflect and you can make changes before you even embark upon painting a main force like I'm going to be doing with the orcs. Alrighty everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this installment in our From Sprue to Tabletop series. I'm really excited to actually go through the priming process of getting these orcs ready to go and starting to actually fully paint them up as well and get them as a nice cohesive force as well. And I'm excited to be able to share this journey with you guys where I'm painting a full force, maybe not like 1,000 or 2,000 points of orcs, but, you know, a combat patrol level force, you could say, of orcs for contrast paints, and really seeing how it looks across an entire army. And I want to thank you for sticking right the way through today's video. And if you did enjoy it, feel free to hit with a like. If you have any thoughts of your own around testing color schemes, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below. And if you want to join me on this journey or catch any of the other content that we create here at the ATWN, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so you'll be notified when we are creating more content here on the network, whether that is tournament previews and tournament coverage, some more for the new guy content is coming soon, along with more installments in our From Sprue to Tabletop series here, and everything else that we do here at the network. Also want to give a massive shout out to Miniature Horde, who has been the sponsor for the Orc Force that we're doing for these videos as well. So make sure to check them out and give Irish some love there as well. And also I want to give a massive shout out to all of our financial contributors, whether you're subscribed over on Twitch, whether you're a member over here on YouTube, or you're a member in our Ko-Fi page as well. Your memberships and support financially allow us to invest in better gear to provide better tournament coverage to the Australian Warhammer 40k tournament scene, which has been really pivotal as of late, being able to invest in the PTZ cameras, and now we're going to be able to have a solid 2 commentator audio setup, and it's all thanks to your guys' financial support as well. So thank you so much. But ladies and gentlemen, I've been ScottyD, and I hope to catch you in the next video.